We're now going to move over to hearing from Lewis and Jake, and I'll say it properly for a change, from the University of Oxford.
Thank you.
Sticks in the throat slightly, but I can. Hearing about pints, punts, and problems. Gentlemen, if you will.
Thank you. Okay, hi guys. So we're going to talk about pints, punts, and problems. Specifically, solving the mystery of AV at Oxford. It turns out ChatGPT does an incredible Kevin Whately, but a terrible John Thor. So there you go. Use that as you need to. Well, who are we? Well, I'm Lewis. I'm the AV Service Manager for Oxford. I've been at Oxford for 5 years. I started in the lecture capture support team, and my boss went, "You'll do, I'm off, see you later, mate." And now I'm running the show, which is terrifying. And this is?
I'm Jake, I'm the AV Solutions Manager. I'm just about to hit my 4th year of the uni, and 3 years since joining Lewis. And essentially, I am his...
Go on, you can say it.
diligent follower.
Let's go with that. So, who are the AVSS that we've been alluding to throughout this? Well, that is Oxford's centralised AV support service. And we're made up of a team of technical subject matter experts. There they are. And we deliver support, and we're raising the quality. We're raising the quality of AV at Oxford, both across installation and support, and that's across the entire collegiate university. I'll get into what that is in a minute. Fundamentally, though, we are a centrally governed service that sits within educational media services, which is set within IT services, which is set within the university administration services. Layers, right? We're getting there. It's like an onion, only way less tasty. And yeah, it also makes you cry. Thank you, Dean. So, what do? Well, we set standards, we provide assurance, and we offer that centrally managed support service that's our sort of bread and butter. The important thing is we also recognize that, local departments, they own their spaces, they own their product, and we're not there to tell them what to do, as much as we would like to. But anyway, that's enough about us. Let's talk about Oxford. So, the story so far. In 1096, academic teaching started. That's the number we can prove. And we like evidence. We like evidence-based facts. So 1096, there's apocryphal evidence that actually it was like 690. Some deacon somewhere did some teaching and that was good, which is great. So 1096, we're going to skip a little bit. That, you'll notice, is before the concept of the number 0 was introduced to Europe in 1202. In 1209, absolutely nothing of any importance happened at all, and we're not going to talk about that. 1249, our first colleges were founded. Told you. I did apologise in advance. Those colleges still exist, and they are the 3 founding colleges of the collegiate system. 1325, that's the foundation of the Aztec Empire, not the collapse of the Aztec Empire, the foundation of the Aztec Empire. I'm going to skip a fair few hundred years now, which brings us to the introduction of gaslighting in 1818, which you'll notice is nearly 100 years before our main shared teaching space was built, which also predates telephones and electricity. Try running cables in a building that predates electricity. It's not fun. What that means, fundamentally, is much of our estate is listed, and that's built out of either limestone, oak, or asbestos. Or usually, all 3. What is it you say, Jake, that we have listed buildings and we have listed asbestos?
The building problems are listing asbestos and listed asbestos.
There we go. So, Oxford is a quintessential decentralised estate. It's got 43 colleges and permanent private halls and societies. Those are all basically, for want of a better word, colleges. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty between what is a college and what is a permanent private hall, but fundamentally...
It's God.
Huh?
It's God, that's the
God.
nitty-gritty.
God is the difference. Yeah, we'll leave him out of the rest of the PowerPoint, please. I'm very irreverent today. Each one of these is a legally independent institution. Oxford is not one university. We're 43 universities in a trench coat pretending to be one university. Technically two, because after the collegiate university...
Stained glass.
Yeah, lots of stained glass. Love it. I'm here for that. Where are your washing facilities, guys?
I would totally go and get them together.
Come back again, yeah. Thanks. I was going to take the bell off of you, but you know what? Thanks.
I'll arrange it.
Thanks. After the collegiate university, we then have the central university, and that's what we consider our departments. So we've got 7 divisions: humanities, MPLS, medical. I'm not going to list them, you can read. Fundamentally, there's a lot of division in Oxford, even when you've separated it out from colleges and teaching and departments specifically. So, what does that mean? That means we've got nearly 1,000 years of federated and unique identity. All of these institutions have done things their way for 1,000 years. So, you know those things that you guys kind of like? You know, like centralized guidance, strategy, and subject matter experts? Yeah, we don't have any of that. Or at least we didn't. All the knowledge at Oxford was siloed in local teams across all of those institutions. So what does that mean for teaching spaces? Well, when you think of Oxford, a lot of people think, an Oxford teaching space. I've never been, but it probably looks like that. You'd be right. That's the old library at St Edmund's Hall. You'll notice that it's a very traditional teaching space, and our books are so dangerous that we don't just chain them to the shelves, we keep them in cages. Sorry, Terry. This is fundamentally what a lot of people seem to think of when they think of Oxford. If you've ever been to Oxford, and you've been a tourist at Oxford, you've probably had the tourist view of Oxford, which is this. This is New College's dining hall, not strictly speaking a teaching space, but you can imagine a lot of knowledge and probably a lot of bullshit has been shared across the tables between students drinking. Funnily enough, New College, so named because it was a new college in, 1530 something?
Yeah.
Still called New. Nothing changes at Oxford very quickly, as I'm sure anyone from Hugh Shot will tell you. But you'll fundamentally notice that the aesthetic continues throughout the state. It's limestone, it's oak, it's stained glass. This is the view that tourists tend to get. Sorry, that's just Hogwarts, so we'll move on. If you were lucky enough to go to Oxford, you probably recognise this. This is exam schools. You know that building I told you that was built after the introduction of gas and electricity? This is what it looks like. It's actually quite nice. It's lovely. Until you remember it was built before gas and electricity and telephones and there's no cable runs and yeah, but we'll not talk about the fact that that building exists any more than that. We've got a lot of teaching spaces, and in the last 4 years or so of us being at Oxford, we've gone around and we've seen, I'd probably say we've seen about 50% of them. Maybe that's an estimate, but
I'd
most
love
of
it
them.
if that was the case.
Oh, okay. Most of it, yeah, you've got the steps in.
Yeah.
Most of them, however, look like that. That's the secret behind the cheese, guys. You know, what does that mean, though? So if you've got spaces that have been left to their own devices and people who've done their own thing for 1,000 years, you end up with a wide, Wild West type estate. Everything is different. There's no continuity. Every user experience is different in every single space. And that variety, while you could almost call it the Oxford experience, that introduces a significant burden on support teams. Anyone who's worked support will know if you have multiple different room types, multiple different systems, that's a lot of work. We were actually really lucky. We went into the archives and we found some video footage of what AV support at Oxford was like before the introduction of our central service. I don't know if you saw this. This might be familiar to you, Marcus. So yeah, I'll just play a little clip, not the whole thing, it's quite long. I'll play a little clip of that for you. Thank you. So what was the problem? Joking aside from all of that, you know, if you have a fragmented and inconsistent support, that leads to unpredictable user experiences. Poor AV design causes gaps in accessibility and weak alignment with teaching practice. And the limitations you place on your workforce, that causes failures in procurement and equipment management. As you were saying, make friends with your procurement team. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. All of this points to the fact that our spaces were just not future ready. They're not. They weren't. I can tell you that. That's a freebie. So how do we move forward from that? Well, Helen Christian here, who sponsored what we're calling now the Teaching Spaces Audit Service, which was DTP 1079 Physical Spaces Project, mouthful. She gave us this lovely quote, which is, good quality physical teaching spaces are a fundamental need. Meeting this basic requirement is the foundation for innovation. That is chunky, it's a great quote, write that down, stick that on every business case you do. It's brilliant. Thank you. But we've got people saying that, but we've got all of this evidence that says our spaces are not future ready. So we're a bit of a standoff. How do we fix that standoff without shooting each other? I did think about that. In 2019, some bright spark at Oxford went, hey, do you know what we should do? We should maybe investigate AV at Oxford. Maybe we should think about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And they contacted some consultants who came in and they wrote an enormous report that I read some of. Fundamentally, that report stated that you should go back to basics and start again. It identified the need for a central service, and it made clear that there was a significant disconnect between the equipment in a room and the people that wanted to use that room's needs. Started with spaces. The report was like, hey, if you're doing a new building or a refurb of a building, maybe you should, have a formal dialogue between your estates teams, your central AV service, the people that decide your pedagogy, or the person that's going to own the building. Maybe you should talk, have a conversation, share some requirements. Maybe you should develop a university-wide AV design philosophy, or develop some equipment recommendations based on that design philosophy. Maybe you should focus on accessibility and then think about providing some kind of oversight or guidance on how to use these systems. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but someone needed to tell us. It also recommended support, developing a shared support provision at a central and a local level. It said, your basic first line support, that should come from someone who's near the building, your estates team, your facilities team who are there. But they're not subject matter experts, but they need access to subject matter experts. It said that a centralized AV service should be linked to policy decisions, making governance, talking about who in the university is a specialist in this space. Because like I said, we're all siloed. There were about 150 probable people working in Oxford at that time in AV, and none of them knew each other. Why? Oxford's not that big a city. It talked about training. It talked about all of these things. So 2019, we had that document. And then we sat on it till 2023. Something was happening in the world between 2020 and 2023 that might have caused a bit of a problem. But we did take that guidance and we implemented that guidance by putting together a team. Hello, I was the team. Just me. For about 5 minutes until I finally went and convinced my boss, this is a really bad idea. I'm great, I'm lovely and all that, but have you seen the size of this place? So he gave me 2 more people. One of which is over there. So it started with 1, and it became 3, and then 5, and here we are 3 years later, and I've now got 14 people in the team. And I think we're getting to a good number. Stop giving me more capital projects. No, don't. Please keep going, keep going, keep going. So, introducing the AV support service. What do? Funnily enough, we do everything the Kerr Gardner report suggested we should do. We provide bespoke on-site and remote AV support for departments, buildings, and events. Who knew? That's what an AV support service should do. So we're doing it. We build bespoke agreements with our clients, and we develop the things they want. We're a consultancy service. Sorry. But we don't compete. We're friends. Wow, nothing. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Whew. Damn. We provide recommendations. We provide guidance. We also build a community. We take those siloed technicians that are all across the city, and we go, come on, out of your hole, come on. Join the group. Join the community. Stop reinventing the wheel. Work together. So we've built an AV working group, which is a cross-departmental, cross-institutional group of people who have purchasing power. And then we took our friendly people in procurement and we said, hey, come and talk to... And suddenly, it all came together. And it was beautiful and wonderful. We started developing training and guidance, and it was wonderful. And then we started hitting some challenges. I think these are all pretty common challenges. I would hope that we weren't discovering new and unique problems, but...
That's what we do.
It's what we do. We find unique problems. Generally, though, we found that when people were taking on AV work, they just were not engaging with the people that know anything about AV before it was time. It's way too late. We were finding that we were suffering from a skills shortage. I think we've hired pretty much everyone within a 10-mile radius of the city now. So
we will have by the end of this week if we
we'll
haven't.
have by the end of this week, yeah. There's not enough people that work in this industry. That's why apprentices are a fantastic thing. We love you. Please tell everyone apprenticeships are amazing. We don't have enough programmers. We don't have enough project managers. There's just not enough staff. However, despite all those challenges, I think we've had some pretty good successes. Since coming online, we've done a few small projects, nothing too overwhelmingly large, like the largest building that we've ever built, and then the second largest building we've ever built in 1,000 years. I'll get into those later. We've overhauled exam schools. Exam schools was a real win for us. This building that predates everything, we dropped the number of tickets in that space by 85% by spending £100,000 on just monitors and basic hardware. We took out all of the old VGA projectors and we put screens in. It's not rocket science, but somehow no one had thought to do it. But the really major win for us was taking a university that had no real relationships with any one or two teams and bringing them on board. So we now have 2 preferred AV suppliers for integration. We have 1 preferred AV consultant, love you. And we have 2 preferred AV box shifters. And these companies are really important to the work that we do, and we're really happy and proud of those relationships. Supplier management was a thing that we've really felt that we did well with. Talking about AV standards, yeah, we've done all right, haven't we?
We've done all right.
Yeah, good. Service growth, I think, is a real success. Shortly after I was given the job of running the AV support service, I was told maybe in 5 to 10 years you might have 3 people in the team. 3 years later, we've got 14.
We don't lack ambition.
Huh? Yeah, I want to rule the world. We'll get to that at the end. So, what does this mean? We've got all these challenges, we've got all these successes, but what opportunities have we brought to the university in general? Well, we've been able to take departments who are struggling for funding. There's this rumour or this image in Oxford of, oh, you've got all the money in the world, haven't you? Yes, we do, in some parts. In other parts, we really don't. Remember the split system? All the money's in the colleges, and they have loads of money, and they're brilliant, and they love spending it. The departments, not so much. So we were really able to drive value for them by saying, hey, yes, we've just built this lovely brand new Schwartzman building. It's fantastic. Cost 185 million quid. But if you don't have 185 million quid kicking around underneath the sofa cushions, come and talk to us and we can deliver you a very similar experience for much less money. Lots of opportunities that I think really are what drives our success. But you've probably heard enough about me talking about that. Jake, why don't you take over for a little bit and tell us about these actual successes?
Cool. Don't encourage him, it'll only get worse. Right, So this is either the where the rubber meets the road section or the what I did on my summer vacation section. So over the summer, we decided, in a genius stroke of planning, to open two of the university's largest capital projects in its entire history at exactly the same time. So the first of these is the Schwarzman Centre for the Humanities. Many of you will have seen about this because I'm incessantly posting about it on LinkedIn. But for those of you not familiar with it, what is the Schwarzman Centre for the Humanities? Well, there we go.
The home of 7 departments and 2 research institutes, a 500-seater concert hall, a black box experimental performance space, a cinema, a 250-seater theatre, a recital hall, 7 libraries, a big collection of musical instruments, a bar, 2 cafes, and much more beside.
So that's our shiny new building. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in much more beside is the 90-something teaching spaces that we've got in there as well. So it is the new home for the humanities in Oxford. So we have a cross-divisional space where 7 humanities faculties, as well as the social sciences department, the Oxford Internet Institute, and the Centre for Ethics and AI, have all come together in one building, bringing a lot of these discrete fractured units all together in one go. We have with us today Dean, Joe and Joe, my colleagues working either with me or in our humanities IT team, who are responsible for supporting the AV in this building.
So what's going on right now, if they're all here?
It's fine. I'm watching Reflect. It's fine.
Cool.
It's the result of the largest philanthropic gifts to the university since the Renaissance, which was helpfully pipped this week by a gift to somewhere, Statler and Waldorf up there, from a former Oxford student. So that
What's
feels
up with that, huh?
that feels a little bit, yeah. It was also, you know, there's a whole load of superlatives associated with this space, particularly in terms of its energy consumption. It's the largest passive house university building in Europe and the world's first passive house concert hall. This has been considered broadly a success. Teaching is happening, everyone is happy. The comment that Dean likes to repeat is the registrar saying it's like a swan gliding across. Like, it looks fantastic and elegant. Underneath the water, legs are kicking like anything. So I'm going to start off at the beginning talking about how great everything is, and then I'm going to come to some lessons learned a little bit later where I might be a little bit less positive. Genuinely, and before we get to those points, we've had a really great working relationship with HughShot, who designed the space, GVAV, who installed it, and all of the partners that we've got in there. You know, we've got a lot of QSys, we've got a lot of Sharp, and a lot of Sennheiser mics, and a whole variety of other equipment after that. Any of the comments I'm going to make do not reflect on our experience with those companies, but AV is hard, and getting all those things to talk together and getting things to work when you come to a project of this scale takes a lot of effort. So when we come to lessons learned, it's all about that kind of final step. So as if that wasn't enough, you saw Lewis's page previously about what an Oxford teaching space looks like with the books in chains. This is what one of our modern teaching spaces looks like. You can see that kind of continuity of experience, but now fully tech-enabled. We have lecture capture in there. We've got hybrid functionality for a Teams room. We've got full audio capture from a set of ceiling mics. We've got full room capture from our pan-tilt zoom cameras that are hooked up to the microphones as well, so they will automatically focus in on whoever's speaking. So we've got a fully technically enabled space that still has a lot of the character of a traditional Oxford space.
You'll notice these books are safer because they're not in cages.
Yes. So that was so much fun, we decided to do it again at exactly the same time. So this is some of the Life of Mine building. So when we started this, it was the largest single building project in its entire history. 1,400 researchers, staff teaching. It's got wet labs, it's got sleep labs, it's got meeting rooms, it's got teaching spaces. It's got a seminar room that at the back has this fantastic cabinet of curiosities. It's home to the biology department, and so they've just found whatever kind of skulls and tarantulas they had lying around and stacked them all up in the back of the room. This was a fantastic time to do a project when you can have a guaranteed 100% practical completion at the beginning of the summer, giving you the whole summer to finish a building that had basically been pre-built that we were then going back in to just fit some kit in over the top. And the thing about 100% ironclad, watertight, I'm going to finish this project at the beginning of the summer means that they do not finish at the beginning of the summer. So we ended up with what was looking like an 8-week compressed timeline to get quite a lot of AV into this space. It then took approximately 6 weeks for people to sign a piece of paper allowing us to get into that space. So a compressed 8-week timeline, which was going to be tough, became 2 weeks. Miracles were made, people walked on water, teaching was able to happen. That's partly due to a lot of hard work from a lot of people in this space, partly due to just realizing that you have to prioritize the teaching spaces and everything else can go wait. So you end up pulling, the all-nighters, the long weekends, whatever, you pull spaces out of thin air somehow. And we've got a lot of thanks for our integrators and stuff to thank for that. The key highlight that's been raised by all, once you do a project, you have to do all the lessons learned, right? And one of the highlights that people have talked about is the way in which we were able to act as an interface between the integrators, between the departments, between the consultant, and just act as this kind of like glue that is getting through blockages, making stuff happen, and pulling it all together. And we end up with these gorgeous spaces. So this is the side view of the Life in Mind building. Don't know how well it comes out in the image on the projection, but the little crinkles you see on the right-hand side of each of those patterns, they emulate the scans of a brainwave of one of the key researchers that's working in that. So it's home to biology and experimental science. Again, another cross-divisional space, one with an entirely different network team to what was done in the other space. Because of the federated nature of the university, where we have different teams working on different things, we don't have a single network that bounces the estate. The one I always like to talk about at conferences that gets a nice ooh from the room is we don't have an active directory across the university. Each individual group runs its own, so you can imagine how much fun that is. When it comes to working across projects, within the university, basically the only people that were working across both of these projects at the same time are standing in front of you right now. And this is what a teaching space looks like in the Life in Mind. We are Oxford, we are fancy, we do put flowers on the table for every single class.
Used to be candles, didn't it?
Yep. But you're not allowed candles in the libraries anymore because you might burn down those dangerous books.
Right, I'll hand you back to him in a second.
Thank you very much. So, well, there's not much else to say really because everything's great and wonderful. And, that's all, folks. Everything's fine. We're all happy. There were no problems. Both of those projects went off without a hitch. Hugh Shot was able to go, yep, done, brilliant, lovely, all good. Maybe not quite. So, what did we learn? Well, we learned a few things. We learned some fundamentals. Bearing in mind, we're a very young service. The institution is 1,000 years old, we're 3. And I act like it sometimes. So what are the fundamentals that we really learnt about this? Don't do 2 major capital projects at the same time, because it doesn't work. Don't do it, please. But it's out of our control. Delays happen. Sometimes you've just got to, put your big boy pants on and get it done, right? You've got to get it done. Don't overrun. Because no project ever runs. Yeah?
Done.
Fixed. Yeah. Don't overrun. There you go. Learnt that. Snagging is not a myth. And compressed timelines means costly mistakes later. I think we can all agree that that's true. Don't book events in spaces that haven't been handed over yet, or even commissioned, or perhaps even finished.
That was a chilling laugh of recognition going around the room there. I just don't like that.
However, I feel slightly better about the fact that other
don't
people
like
made
that. That's not how we should work. This is not a good industry.
Yeah. And finally, maybe design the AV that's going into the building before you've built the building? Maybe. Weird. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
Weird.
Oh. These are all out of our control. But they're good advice. And sometimes you might be in the room early enough to be able to say, hang on a second, can we just make... You probably get told no. We've been told no a lot in the last 3 years. I get told no almost daily by Jake. But someone's got to rein me in, because if no one does, oh boy, it'll go bad. Mandatory.
That's the way this relationship works.
Yes.
I'm reining you in. Cool. Good to hear. Good to hear.
Manage your manager, right? That's how it goes. What about the positives? There are some. The AVSS is recognized as an agile, expandable service. Apprenticeships are big and clever, and we should all be doing more of them. If you don't have an apprentice, please get an apprentice. I can't tell you how great it is to take a young mind and mold it in your own image. Can you tell I'm about to become a father? Just shape that mind. Sorry. Never mind. Jake said in a pub not that long ago, we freaking rule and are very good at our jobs. So I consider that to be a positive.
Yep.
And yeah, another positive is we've built some really strong relationships with our new preferred suppliers, and there they are. Look at them. Hey. Look at them all. Hey. Love them. Love you all. Jake, you
Yep.
ready for some lessons?
Yep.
Okay. Learn us.
Right. So, there is a wide range of experience in this room. Many of you are going to know the things that I'm talking about inherently. For some of you, this may be new and possibly shocking information. So I'm going to give you some things that we've picked up building these buildings that we've learned the hard way. We probably should have known much of these in advance, but hey, that's what happens when you're new. And this is kind of an insight into what the last 6 months of my life have been. I see this, I see this, I see this. I wake up every night thinking about Wireshark and topologies and seeing packets go missing.
Are you a network engineer, Jake?
No, but apparently I do a very good impression of one.
Good.
And that's kind of the key problem, right? Is that networking is very, very difficult. I have learned this the not easy way at all. And then when I have the networking teams telling me that networking is very, very difficult, I'm in real trouble. So I think even from I'm not from an IT background, as is going to become incredibly clear for the course of this conversation. But I am fairly technical. And I had been working in AV and IT for a little bit by the time these projects came along, and I knew broadly what we want to be doing with networks. We talk about security, we talk about VLANing, I know how a network is structured, all of that kind of good, simple stuff. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. And now I am fully able to talk about IGMP snooping and DSCP assigning of packets and quality of service. And a whole new thing I learned about recently, which is we call them the BOOM, broadcast, unaddressed unicast, and multicast, which is spelled B-U-M. So a lot of the time I've spent in the last week is looking for the bum. The problem we have is that we are setting up these AV over IP systems, which is not a brand new technology, but also not something that we've been doing for decades, right? So we are kind of on a slighter cutting edge. But because we don't have one network team that is running the entire estate, we did this once at Reuben House. And then we did this again somewhere else, and that was a different network team. And we're doing it again, and it's a different network team. And even if you're working within the same team, sometimes the personnel change. So you can't really rely on, oh, the network team will do it, because there is no the network team. It's become a really shocking realization that you kind of have these conversations about, right, who is going to sort out what we need to do next, and realizing that the who is you. So the first lessons I would advise you to is you're going to have to learn about networks. Good luck. It's horrible. We are really lucky to have some very, very talented network engineers working in all these separate teams. The problem we have is that talented network engineers can go their entire life never touching multicast. So we are they are more than happy to help, and it's not a question of lack of engagement or lack of knowledge. It's just they are doing this for the first time as well. The people that you are looking to, the experts, to tell you what to do, are going to shrug. Number 2, managing your manager, right? So we have some great relationships with our current preferred suppliers. There's a whole story about how we got to have those great relationships with our current preferred suppliers and what happened with our previous preferred supplier that we'll talk about sometime when we're drinking. They're great. We genuinely have some really talented project managers. It does not matter how good they are, they cannot do the entirety of their job when working with a university like Oxford. It's probably the same for all universities, but they can't do the whitelisting. They can't do the account creation that we need for Teams rooms. They can't go and order the asbestos checks. They can't get the heritage team involved. There is a very solid line where that becomes an internal problem. And what we realized as part of that report, even though I don't think they fully got the extent of it, is that when you start doing these AV projects, you need somebody on the inside managing this. Again, who is that? It ends up being me again. So you need to kind of build that resource into your planning and your project management timelines and your staff availability, right? Is that you've got to have somebody who can be there checking up, making sure the internal stuff is being done, and then has a big enough voice to shout at the people internally to make sure that they do stuff, and was at least able to convince them that the important stuff is important. When you're designing stuff and building an AV system, it's a little bit more complicated than plugging in boxes, as we all know, but there's a lot of different ways to plug in a box, right? So on the left, we have something from one of our previous preferred suppliers, which was It's beautiful. I mean, it works, right?
It paid for the Christmas party when we scrapped it.
It does, yeah. Copper we should have saved it. The copper prices have been great.
Yeah.
And so we all look at that instinctively and go, yikes, right? And I said much worse than yikes when I found that at the back of the rack, right? But we have the thing on the right, which is from our new Centre for the Humanities. It looks gorgeous, don't get me wrong. Got these nice, neat cable bands and stuff like that. At the same time, what we've learned in the last few months is having a whopping great big metal rack, which is aesthetically gorgeous, right? Completely out of the way, blends into the walls. If it takes 2 people to lift the cover off to reboot stuff, and when you're still snagging a building when people are using it, you will be rebooting stuff, and you will be unplugging stuff, and you'll be having to fix things. That is still not really supportable. My networks guy will scream about the fact that we ended up having to put 2 network switches in the room, because again, what are we, like in the 90s? But having that in the room, again, means that when we want to do physical things to the network, because apparently you do still need to plug cables into these things. I know we're all in a nice cloud environment, but I do still need to plug stuff into things. So think about how you're going to make the kit work before you install it. Not always been one of our strengths. And there's a side fact to this lesson, which is that you should throw your weight around and keep the receipts. I think a lot of us realized at the design phase of these things that some of this was going to be a bad idea, but it was necessitated because it would save us a little bit of money here, or it would make this bit easier, or we just couldn't do X, Y, Z. There is something deeply, deeply satisfying about being in a meeting and saying, are we sure this doesn't sound like a great idea for X, Y, Z? And then X, Y, Z happening, and you can just be like, as per my previous email. It doesn't get you anywhere, but sometimes it is useful to be a little bit petty. And I say that it doesn't get you anywhere, but I've spent the last 3 years bitching about the fact that we get involved in Reba Stage 4 or Reba Stage 5. It turns out they go all the way back to 1. I have a meeting on Monday that is a Reba Stage 1 kickoff for a new project.
Yes!
The Alleluia chorus played when this came through, I tell you. So I attribute that success entirely down to the fact that we said that things were going to go poorly on some areas. They went poorly. We could show that we said this, and then it doesn't take an Oxford University intellect to say, oh, maybe we should try and do something differently next time. So it's about getting yourselves in the room and then being able to show that why you should have been there. We're not working with amateurs. Like, we had plans, we had schematics, we had diagrams of how everything was going to work. When you're trying to rush through your timelines, people are working longer hours, things get missed, they're not necessarily performing at their best, and things that you think might be really, really obvious don't necessarily always happen. So for those who are a little bit unclear about what's going on in this image, on the left, I have a whiteboard. On the right, I have a whiteboard camera. Those are not the same wall. We cannot be everywhere, we cannot constantly be watching everybody, but unless somebody comes up with a better solution than that, that's your option. So get on site early, do the walkarounds, check that things are built to your building, check that people have the diagrams, check that they know how to read the diagrams.
Which version of the diagram?
We'll get to change management in a minute.
That's you.
Sorry.
Yeah, actually.
It's the little wibble at the end I like. The reverb in that, this is a fantastic, well-designed space, right? And if you are sat in the auditorium, you are going to have a great experience. This is in the Schwartzman. I'm sorry I'm picking on the Schwartzman a little bit, but I knew you were going to be here. This is the same across a couple of the spaces that we built over the summer. We've got spaces where there's a ton of acoustic treatment in this space just out of shot. Maybe not a ton. There is some acoustic treatment just out of shot. When in the Life and Mind building, we have acoustic treatment all the way up, back from everywhere, apart from the teaching zone. So when I'm at the front, I sound like I'm teaching you in a squash court. Everyone in the auditorium is having a great time. But where does this acoustics element sit in your project? Because I don't know that architects are doing it to the greatest extent. I don't know that we are then mandating that it gets put in to the greatest extent. And our integrators will come in and go, you probably should do some acoustic treatment here. But that's also not their main gig. So we're finding that everyone kind of thinks that we should do some acoustic stuff before the project gets built, but nobody's taking ownership of that. And the real question then is, whose job is that? And I'm not making this one me. But you need to find somebody who can take ownership and take responsibility for that. And that's going to vary dramatically depending on whether this is a brand new capital project, right? If you're lucky enough to build a new building, hopefully that gets built into the early design phases. But we also, while we are building a shed ton of new buildings, we also have quite a lot of old ones we need to work on. And where does the acoustic element fit into there? We've got a fantastic project we're working on, again, my friends from Hughshot, of a theatre in the middle of the city. It's the university's kind of institutional hub. It's where we do our degree ceremonies, still in Latin. It's where we do our matriculations, which is the ceremony that gets you in.
Still in Latin.
Still in Latin. We do concerts, occasionally in Latin.
Mostly.
But, you know, all these kind of things. But it's designed by Christopher Wren. Fantastic suspended mural ceiling. How do we challenge the acoustics in that? It's all well and good somebody from an AV team coming in and saying, got to chuck some panels in, mate. The heritage guys aren't going to like that. So where does that balance lie? Change management. You should do it.
Yeah,
the thing about trying to do 6 months of network diagnostics on an AV over IP system is if it's not the same system every single day, you are just going to spend your life chasing your tail. I have been banging my head against walls. You are troubleshooting on shifting sand. Woke up one morning to a load of messages from my colleague Dean asking about why the boardroom was not working and when the mics had just suddenly, overnight, we'd been doing some work in there previously. Was that related? 6 hours of messing around trying to work out what's going on, checking our logs, checking our management systems, talking to some team members. We get a message from the networks guy being like, oh yeah, the device was acting weird, so I turned off the port. Right? We had no comms. I think that's an obvious thing to not do. It's amazing how often that stuff comes up, right? We're talking about trying to fix network issues and finding that the cables have been moved around because it seemed to work a little bit quicker when it's in this point. It's that kind of stuff. Have a log so that you're not just constantly trying to change your own tail. I'm back to you. Sorry, I've gone completely off book and given you back my notes.
That's cool. Thank you. So, we've learnt a lot. According to this, 6 lessons. I think we've learnt a few more than that. But
I had a 3B.
You did? Okay, 6.5. There you go. What's next for us? Well, we're looking at a remote-first support model for spaces that meet our standards. The reason being, as stated, we've recruited everyone within a certain radius of Oxford. We've run out of people, and apprentices take 2 years to cook. So we're going to have to find another way of doing this. So we love coming to places like this and saying, have you seen my new remote management platform? And we go, no, tell me more, tell me everything now, please God, tell me. We're looking at doing pilots of manufacturer-agnostic remote management platforms. Jake is very fond of answering the question of, do you use product X at Oxford? With, yes, of course we do. We use everything. So manufacturer-agnostic platforms, we love them. We're doing more capital projects, hopefully not at the same time, but no, my luck. More recruitment, we are actively recruiting right now, although actually that advert has closed. But hey, who knows? World domination is on my list. Maybe a new hair colour, highly unlikely, I love pink. Well, I've been trying, but we'll see. More likely, however, I think this is what's next for us.
The Winchester, have a nice cold pint and wait for all this to blow over. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy!
That's all, folks.